You know, a big reason why a lot of runners don't get into more strength training is because they think they're gonna bulk up. They think they're gonna gain a bunch of weight and then they won't be efficient anymore. They're gonna be dragging more weight around the race course. And in this video, I wanna tell you why that isn't the case. Now, there is a lot of reasons why strength training is not going to make a distance runner bulk up and gain a bunch of weight. So let's go through some of those reasons right now. The first one is simply the real world effects of strength training that we see out there among pro runners. If you look at the front of the pack in any major race, all those athletes are strength training and those athletes are not bulky. So it stands to reason that if the best runners in the world can strength train in such a way to give them all the benefits of strength training, but without the hypertrophy, the muscle growth that we don't really want as runners, we can do that too. The secret is just to lift appropriately, which we're gonna get into. All right, so the best runners in the world are lifting weights. They're not getting big and bulky. They're not looking like bodybuilders. And that's because they're actually lifting for different physical purposes than a bodybuilder would. When a bodybuilder goes in the weight room, their goal is hypertrophy and they're going to lift accordingly. Just like with running training. Training for a 100-meter dash is very different than training for a 100-mile ultramarathon. Very different styles of training. Same thing is true with strength training. If you're training to get bigger, your strength training is going to look so much different than a distance runner's would. And that's because a distance runner really needs to focus on strength and power, which are different physical skills than, say, hypertrophy and muscle growth. So when we do get in the weight room, we are not going to spend hours and hours in the weight room. We are not going to lift 4 or 5 times a week. Some bodybuilders may even lift 6 or 7 days a week. Instead, we are going to lift maybe twice a week. And by focusing on strength and power, what that really means is that we are going to be focusing on relatively a low number of reps and a relatively high weight. So we're going to do something like 4 to 10 reps, depending on where we are in the strength training cycle, with relatively high weight. And it's this rep and weight scheme that is going to help us get a lot stronger, while at the same time developing more power so that we can kick and race fast. Now, the other major reason why we're not going to gain much weight, if at all, if we start strength training is because of our energy needs. You know, we're going to be running in addition to all that strength training that we're doing. A bodybuilder is not doing much at all of cardio. So if we are doing even a little bit of running, say 15 or 20 miles a week, we are increasing the energy demands of our entire exercise program so that that energy needs to go to running and then to recovery. We don't have as much caloric energy available to go to building our muscles even bigger. That's why you're gonna see a lot of bodybuilders eat a tremendous amount of food and then basically just sit around and not do a ton of cardiovascular exercise. They don't want to spend those calories, you know, through walking, running, cycling, etc. They want all those calories to go to building muscle. That's why their workouts are so long. That's why they're so frequent. And that's why they really don't do much aerobic exercise at all. Us runners are a little different. We're doing a lot of running in addition to the strength training that we're doing. So we don't have to worry about our excess energy going to muscle size. All that excess energy is going to our running and to our recovery. So as long as you're lifting appropriately, in other words, you're lifting for strength and power, and you are running in addition to your weightlifting, you have very, very little to worry about when it comes to gaining weight. And I always like to use this fun analogy. It's sort of like a weightlifter saying, but what if I run twice a week for 30 minutes and all of a sudden I become a sub 5-minute miler? It doesn't work like that. You have to work really, really hard to become really fast. Same thing with weightlifting. You have to work really, really hard to get really big muscles. And if you're not doing it in a methodical way, which we're not as distance runners, you are not going to gain that extra weight and you've got nothing to worry about. I could not make these videos without your support. So first, let me say thank you. And this video is brought to you by our very own Performance Training Journal.
I have always been in love with hard copy training journals for a few really good reasons. Number one, when I was a new runner and I started keeping an actual training journal like this, I learned so much more about the sport and myself just by that practice. It really forces you to reflect on your training, to think more deeply about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And if you are constantly reflecting on your training, praising yourself for what's going right, planning for the future, and then looking back on what has previously worked for you, you are gonna really know yourself as a runner, and you're gonna start to make wiser decisions about your training. I also created this training journal because I want you to focus on the training metrics that actually matter. The training metrics that help you improve, get better, and progress with your running. We don't have to focus on everything. We just need to focus on what matters. I also took a lot of inspiration from professional runners that I've talked to on the Strength Running podcast. They're adamant by completing a training journal and reflecting on what works for you and actually giving yourself some praise within your journal. You're essentially completing a gratitude journal. You are building up your confidence in your own abilities over time. And when you look back on that journal before a big goal race, you are going to be reading in your own words why you're capable, why you can do this. And I can think of nothing more confidence building than an act like that. So I hope you check out the new performance training journal. It is now available on Amazon. It debuted as the #4 new release in the running category, and I could not be more proud of it. So thank you again for subscribing to the Strength Running YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoy the performance training journal.
So runners, when you consider how hard it is to gain muscle when you're running and lifting weights, when you consider the fact that if we're lifting appropriately, we're not even lifting in the way that hypertrophy demands. And with all of the running that we're doing, it just makes extra weight gain that much harder. When you compare all that with how beneficial weightlifting is for runners, it's really a no-brainer in this coach's opinion. We are going to gain strength. That strength is going to allow us to handle more mileage. We are going to gain injury resilience. That injury resilience is going to make us more consistent, and it's going to let us train harder, and we're actually going to become more powerful. Why is that a beneficial thing? Well, when you're 400, 800 meters out from the finish line and you want to run fast, if you want to kick it in and have a good negative split at the end of a race, power is the physical skill that's going to really help you do that. All those amazing benefits, not to mention the enhanced running economy that weightlifting gives you. So that's going to help you no matter what race that you're in, but particularly for the longer races where your running economy really matters. So you may not be very interested in the power benefits of weightlifting, but every runner is going to love the running economy and extra efficiency gains that we get from lifting weights. When you compare the two, how hard it is to gain weight with all those amazing benefits that we want as runners, we should all be in the weight room a couple times a week working on these physical skills so that we can become better runners. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it helped you think a little bit more critically about weightlifting and the #1 objection that I usually hear from runners about why they don't want to start lifting weights. They don't want to bulk up. I hope this gave you a little bit of clarity, and I hope this inspired you to start your weightlifting program. If you want some more tips and advice on weightlifting for distance runners, go to strengthrunning.com/strength. There's also a link under this video. I'm gonna walk you through more of this type of content, all the benefits that you can stand to experience when you start weightlifting, plus a lot of those objections that I think aren't really objections at all, that we shouldn't have to worry about, that we should simply put out of our mind and instead get in the weight room and focus on getting stronger so that we can become better runners.